right there.
It's me, your lordship. It's that time again.
Piss off. Let me wallow in my shame for not streaming Elden Ring.
But sir, your fans, they're begging for some Series 7 reviews. Couldn't you just...
I suppose there's not a better time than now to finish reviewing New Who. Plus Harbo's catching up with me at an alarming rate. Alright, what episode did we get up to? Oh no. Support for Harry's Moving Media comes from Atlas VPN. 3-year membership. $1.99 pretty pennies a month. 30-day money-back guarantee. A virtual private network provides you with additional protection against unwanted dinosaurs and spaceships when browsing the internet by changing your internet location. Just like all the characters teleporting in this episode, you too can teleport your internet location from wherever you are to over 30 countries around the world. This not only gives you peace of mind whilst using your devices, but brings all sorts of additional benefits. For example, you can access geo-restricted TV and films made by Silurians on streaming services not available in your home country. You could potentially save some money whilst shopping online too. Atlas now has a breach monitor too. Simply type in your email address and the app will let you know if your account has been compromised in the past or recently. When connected to their servers, Atlas now blocks ads, trackers, and malicious links. Protect unlimited devices with a single subscription and get that time-sensitive offer by clicking my link in the description. A 3-year subscription where you pay the equivalent of $1.99 a month. That's a serious budget-saving offer. Remember, the Easter Bunny is coming and he will know if you aren't protected by Atlas VPN. Now, without further ado, let's get on with the review. Dinosaurs on a Spaceship is just sad. It's so horrendously familiar after slogging through series 11, 12, and 13. The episode begins with some of that location hopping Chibnall has become famous for. Very little of substance actually takes place, with characterization and details being rushed through faster than you can say Jack Robertson. Oh god, look, even the hideous on-screen text didn't manage to be dashed from the script. The other problem seems to be that Chibnall assumes we're 100% familiar with characters like Queen Nefertiti, Riddell, and Rory's dad. Rory's dad likes golf, so that allows him to control a Triceratops. Nefertiti is a powerful woman, therefore the perfect sexual interest for the Doctor. Riddell is fictional and from 100 years ago, therefore he's sexist. The funniest thing is I remember my year 3 English teacher telling me, "Rule 1 of short storytelling, you shouldn't have too many characters." And she was absolutely right.
I don't know what he said to you to make you marry him, but he's a lucky man.
No, of course you don't know, because you weren't even at the wedding.
This is the gang. I've got a gang. Yes.
With hindsight in mind, it seems that Chibnall's own aspirations for being showrunner are made abundantly clear by this line. We're then introduced to this episode's gimmick, where a whole bunch of Ankylosaurus left over from the Walking with Dinosaurs series make an appearance.
Ankylosaurus are so heavily armoured that even their eyelids are hardened.
Let's talk about Brian for a moment. Knowing that the companions will be killed off in a few episodes, do we learn about his relative absence in the past 2 series?
No, he hates travelling. It makes him really anxious. He only goes to the paper shop and golf.
Oh, well, that seemed pretty pulled out of thin air. Apparently he'll leave his house to fix your fucking light bulb, though. The dinosaurs aren't around for very long, and the team gets separated by a teleport.
Why don't we just teleport now?
You know, for a character who has just learned that he can travel in space and time at a whim after essentially being kidnapped by a madman, he seems to kind of reset somewhat right after this outburst.
Well, don't just stand there, you two. Dig!
Ah, well.
The anger and frustration is dropped so unnaturally, all for one of the lamest bits of comedy on the planet.
What sort of a man doesn't carry a trowel?
It doesn't take long for Brian to find a bit of metal.
There's a flaw.
under this beach.
Damn, what an absolutely gigantic assumption. It could be a little box of metal for all you know. This detail is so unimportant, but I just thought this to be a priceless example of Chibnall telling and not showing. This whole segment of finding screens in rocks, tidal-powered engines, and metal floors, honestly, it's like watching a bunch of kids playing pretend, making up their own imaginary scenario as they go along. It seems like a good tactic for getting kids to relate to the characters, but for me, it kills the immersion entirely, especially when the pterodactyls bombard the viewer with the same sound effects as the Reapers 7 years prior. Somewhere else, we see a screen with Solomon watching over the trio on the beach. He's guarded by two robots vocally performed by Mitchell and Webb, who present Chibnall's tone deafness in a nutshell. 1 minute they're adding to the comic relief.
A little bit of oil just came out.
The next, they're tools for a genocide. More on that later. It certainly sparked intrigue for me, considering that the voice of Solomon expresses familiarity with the Doctor, but this is just a misdirection of significance, as Solomon just needs somebody to fix his legs. There does seem to be some assumption about the Doctor's character on the part of Solomon, as he seemed to be certain that the Doctor wouldn't be violent towards him in return for stunning Rory's father. It seems to be a rather short-sighted plan to trap the Doctor in with him unless he knew that the Doctor wouldn't react violently. After Brian is injured though, we have another reminder that Rory is a nurse.
What's that?
Well, you carry a trowel, I carry a med pack. It's all about the pockets in our family.
It's almost like the pair barely know each other. The rest of the team, meanwhile, indulge in some of the cringiest dialogue.
Sorry, what was your name again?
Queen Nefertiti of Egypt.
Oh, damn. Oh my god.
Are we just left to assume this Riddell character travelled with the Doctor at one point in time? I don't know what else can explain his lack of reaction towards this bewildering situation he finds himself in, but then I wonder why on God's earth the Doctor would have somebody as repulsively sexist as him as a companion to begin with.
Queen Nefertiti. I learned all about you at school. You're awesome. Big fan. High five.
I don't know what school curriculum Amy was taught, but I find her reaction here to be so damn ridiculous. More because she's never expressed her love for Egyptian history at all until this point. I suppose the only thing I can think of is in The Wedding of River's Song, when they're taking trains to pyramids. But I'd love to know in the comments if anybody who had a UK public education was taught about this Egyptian queen or not.
And you, Amy, are you also a queen?
Yes. Yes, I am.
That was actually pretty good. Made me chuckle. Nice job. Things took a bit of a nosedive though when Chibnall used this opportunity to actively mock the series he's writing for.
How do you know how to do that?
Well, I've spent enough time with the Doctor to know whenever you enter somewhere new, press buttons.
Honestly, you could just swap Amy with Yaz at this point and it wouldn't make any difference.
Look. It's beautiful.
I can't tell how far we have come.
Oh no, it isn't. If the Hungry Earth Cold Blood stories weren't so underwhelming at best, I would probably care a bit more that the Silurians wound up being here. The Silurian forecast some vague danger coming for Earth, hence why they left in a spaceship. We wouldn't get more details about the Silurian endeavour that would make for interesting world building, as they are all just killed off by the two robots.
What did you do to the Silurians?
We ejected them. The robots woke them from cryosleep a handful at a time and jettisoned them from the airlocks.
Oh, so I guess we are meant to believe that either A, two robots woke up and ejected thousands of Silurians from the ship, or B, that they decided against ejecting them whilst they were all asleep. Had there been more robots once upon a time, that might have been a good detail to mention and make this scenario more believable. Imagining these tanky robots fighting off a swarm of Silurians with casualties on both sides paints a really cool picture. If there are only two though, it seems like a stretch to believe given how contradictory their actions and dialogue are. Are they as useless as Mitchell and Webb's vocal performances imply? Combine that with how poor their accuracy is when aiming at a stationary object in one scene and how great it is in another, diminishes the concept of these robots being a threat in any way, shape or form. It's at this point that more details for this scenario are left scattered to the four winds. I was wondering how exactly the Silurians were able to have dinosaurs on their spaceship in the first place. Can they time travel? Can they revive fossils like Pokemon? It's not too far of a stretch to believe.
You provide a place for us on the surface. We'll give you knowledge and technology beyond humanity's dreams.
It's just that there's one other line in that episode that makes this whole scenario unfitting in the grander picture.
So, here's the deal. Everybody listening. Haldane, you activate shutdown. I'll amend the system, set your alarm for 1,000 years' time. 1,000 years.
Honestly, this one line is what stops this scenario from making sense. It's a tragedy. How did they go from being stuck underground, vilified by humanity in 2020, to be flying in gigantic interplanetary arcs in the space of nearly 350 years before their alarm was due to go off? It makes even less sense given that the Indian Space Agency don't even know this ship's origin. Had this alliance with humanity and Silurians been jump-started earlier than the alarm going off, this too would have made the scenario less nonsensical. Instead, they relied on having a big Silurian reveal.
Silurian.
That ultimately meant nothing for the story. Anyway, Solomon and his bucket full of dinosaurs are headed for Earth and he doesn't know how to get out. For some reason, he lets the Doctor, Rory and Brian just leave so that they can ride the Triceratops. Jesus smegging Christ. This was honestly just the worst. The golf ball rolled on for such a conveniently long amount of time, just so that the chase could go on for longer than 10 seconds. We then see Riddell arming up with some guns he just happened to find.
No weapons. Anesthetic. These are stun guns. You're almost clever.
I'm sorry, how could Amy possibly distinguish between Silurian anesthetic and ammunition? After more unnatural flirting, the Indian Space Agency is ready to blow up the entire ship, dinosaurs, doctors, and innocents included.
The ship's coming through the atmosphere. I have to start the missile program. My only responsibility is the Earth's safety. I'm launching the missiles. Goodbye, Doctor.
All just for a silly countdown. It was rather odd as well how valuable the Doctor appeared to be to the agency at the beginning, only to now see him and the innocents on board as collateral. A confrontation between Solomon and the Doctor grinds the pacing of the episode to a halt once again. He claims that he has changed his mind and would rather have Queen Nefertiti instead of the dinosaurs because he needs to get off the ship. He blasts the Triceratops resting in the corner to prove his point, which, honestly, I had me in stitches. My blackened heart grows darker every day and I don't even smoke. What concerned me more though was how Solomon didn't question Nefertiti being real or just somebody in a costume. It's funny because that is an actor in a costume. Even worse is how, despite not knowing who the Doctor is, he seems to just accept the idea that time travel is real without it being established at any point in the episode. Hilariously, Solomon demands that they bring Nefertiti to him when he could just teleport right to her. There's a big fucking map of life signs, don't you know? Only for her to teleport to him. Right. Solomon takes Nefertiti with him, which leads to an escape sequence with a magnitude of convenience off the fucking scales. The Doctor and gang teleport to the control hub of the ship. He prevents Solomon from leaving with his sonic screwdriver, and Riddell puts himself in front of a herd of velociraptors. Maybe this was some overly obvious nod to Jurassic Park.
Clever girl.
But the means of steering the ship away from the Earth is once again pulled out of thin air. It feels like Chibnall was taking inspiration from his childhood, playing Doctor Who in the school playground. Believe me, I did this too. Amy and the Doctor then have a random water cooler conversation about her being unable to hold down a job in case the Doctor shows up. I don't mind this idea of being constantly reminded of a whole universe out there whilst you have to slog away to pay the bills. The problem comes with the repetition of the conversation. It will become infuriating if the only dialogue the Doctor and Amy exchange in her final 5 episodes wind up being of this nature, affirming that the writers had no further plans for these companions once the river question had been answered. The Doctor then teleports to Solomon's ship, pulling 2 electrified cables out of thin air and disabling the robots. He magically summons a little green object that apparently the ISA's missiles latch onto and leaves it with Solomon so that he can just die. What? Would it have been so hard to have him arrested?
Can I ask a favour? There's something I want to see.
What the fuck? So, did he have the sarnies and thermal flask with him when he went to repair Amy and Rory's light bulb? Or did they go somewhere, pick up a picnic, and go back up to where they were before with Amy and Rory still hanging around? All these drop-offs were so funny to me. Considering Nefertiti's death is a total mystery in the historical record as well, sure, I'll give points to this wacky moment. Though I'm not too sure it enforces a positive message given how a woman of power was swayed by an outright misogynist. Had it been Nefertiti and not Amy who helped put the raptors to sleep, the moment might have fitted in a bit better. The crown jewel of disbelief in this episode for me though was seeing all the bloody postcards from Brian travelling around the world. The white border around the cutout images of him, it just looks awful. The fact they have "I am here" slapped on all of them does nothing to make his clearly photoshopped postcards look any more authentic either. And the TARDIS Siluria picture, holy shit. If this doesn't scream budget, I don't know what does. So, did it suck? Oh boy, I can't believe this episode managed to scrape a 7 on IMDb. People actually liked this episode? It's literally just clickbait. The title isn't even the centerpiece, so we got a half-assed script as though it was written by a gender studies graduate.
You know what I want more than anything?
Lessons in gender politics?
With a famous Chibnall countdown to Doomsday and a boatload of so bad it's hilarious moments in between. I'm sure I can enjoy watching this episode in the latter regard, but I can't appreciate it whatsoever. It's got a few glittering moments of humor and intrigue, but that's all it's got going for it. The episode is recycled as hell, lacking character or substance. I give Dinosaurs on a Spaceship a 2 out of 10.
Rule 1 of short storytelling, you shouldn't have too many characters, people get confused.
He magically summons a little green object that apparently the ISA's the fact they have "I am here" slapped on all of them does nothing to make this clear. Stop.